Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ray Maor and I'm a spiritual mentor. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the history of modern breatharianism. So a lot of people don't know where this actually came from and how it arrived to the West. Of course, breatharianism is the concept of minimalizing your caloric intake. Some people even go as far as not eating and drinking at all, in order to develop ourselves spiritually, enlighten the light body, and unburden the grounded body. Many different cultures in the East, breatharianism is taken for granted, especially places like India, for example, where a lot of people just take a few years up the mountain and just fast and fast, alone by themselves, without the troubles of the world and with no stress or worries. But in the West, we have jobs, we have families, we do have these type of political, economical struggles, and therefore we can't really go to the cave and just sit there for a couple of years. So with the time, different methodologies were developed for people that are more Western or want to live a Western lifestyle, like we do. Normal people, if you want to call it, or a normal life. About 30 years ago, Jasmuheen wrote a book. I think the book was called Living on Light or Pranic Nourishment. She wrote a whole bunch of books. Jasmine was one of the first mentors or guides that brought this type of information to the West. They received the message through an entity and a channeling session. And it was a very short description of a process that takes 21 days for a person to become breatharian. Meaning for a person to drive fast ultimately, to go through different practices, and eventually come out on the other end when the body is ready to begin receiving chronic nourishment, which was, in her words, was like the divine light of energy, which is the proper food for the body. And because Jasmine brought that to the Western world, a lot of people, of course, tried to do the 21-day process. There were successes, there were failures. She got criticized, even though she doesn't deserve being criticized at all. And eventually what happened is that I did the 21-day process myself. I was taught by someone that was taught from Brazil, and they were taught originally, I assume, by the same process and the same books that Jasmine wrote. With time, we understood that this type of process is not meant only for the consciousness crazy lions and people that can actually take 3 weeks off work and 3 weeks off their life and go to a secluded location. And it's a very complicated and even hard and traumatic process for the body. That's what I remember, because it took me more than 6 months after the process, even without eating, to regain my strength. Eventually, different mentors that have taught the 21-day process decided to develop group processes, just like I did. I was a 21-day process guide, and eventually I decided that it's too harsh. There's not a lot of demand, not a lot of people want to do it. It's scary for a lot of people because it's 3 weeks by yourself in a type of like Vipassana state. There's these little exercises that are called intervals that you have to meditate and being in a static state for 7-8 hours straight. It's not comfortable, you know? So eventually these type of group processes were created, I would say about a decade ago, 10, maybe 15 years ago. In the whole world, there were only 4 or 5 guides that were actually teaching the 21-day process. I was one of these teachers of the 21-day process for a few years. And eventually I understood by demand that a lot of people are looking for something that's a little bit easier and a little bit shorter, and yet brings exactly the same type of results. And then what happened is that a lot of the different guides, for example, Akai and I assume Jasmuin and Tal Gilboa as well, we decided to do the group processes. Now, each one has his own type of energy. I am more spiritual and logic. Tal Gilboa is more spiritual and emotional. I downloaded a lot of different meditations and acknowledgements and understandings and information that is required to become a breatharian. So I do it in my own type of way. But the group processes, which were like the next stage of evolution for the 21-day process, were very precise. And what we understood is that the energy of the planet and people are becoming more and more aware and ready for these type of processes. And that's why the demand went up and a lot more people are becoming breatharian these days. Now, I would say about 50% of people who do the initiations actually change something in their relationship with food. A lot of them continue dry fasting, water fasting. Some of them are going to become Breatharian level 3s that hardly eat or eat like once or twice a week. It becomes more of a choice and a freedom and a state of mind when they understand and the body understands that it went through the transition itself. So that's generally how the West received the Breatharian information. I can tell you that eventually it came from friggin' aliens, yeah?